Hello, my name is Vijay Mahajan. I'm professor of marketing at the McComb School of Business, University of Texas at Austin. I'm very pleased to talk to you about my the forthcoming book, Africa Rising. This book will be released in September by the Wharton School Publishing in the US, and hopefully many translations will be available after that in the rest of the world. So three things that really struck me. One was at the macro level. Macro level in the sense that when I started looking at the hard data, for example, the GDP, gross domestic product, what hit me was that collectively GDP for the whole continent per capita, GDP per capita, is actually more than India. So that really hit me that here you have the continent which is more or less the size of, in terms of population, more or less size of India. Africa now has more than about 950 million people, India about 1 billion people. So they're very comparable populations there. And the GDP per capita for Africa, interesting enough, was actually a couple of $100 more than India. Now, usually people say that when you look at the data like that, the GDP data for the whole Africa maybe is dominated by South-North countries. But the fact of the matter there is I found that to be true, the positive news to be true in many, many countries. In fact, there are close to 15 or 16 countries in Africa where actually the GDP per capita is actually even more than China. And there are about 200 to 300 million people living in those countries. Anyhow, this macro data was very interesting to me. Second thing that really struck me was when I was speaking with many of the advertising agencies, what I call in the book as Africa 2. And that really, the size of the Africa 2 really hit me. And in fact, in the book I argue that the Africa, actually the economy, our consumerism in Africa is going to be really driven by this Africa 2. Now, what is this Africa 2? Well, most of the companies and ad agencies in Africa divide their markets in each country, and of course the definition would vary. They divide that into 5 categories, A, B, C, D, E. Depending upon the incomes, depending upon the possessions in the house, where they live, what they do, so on and so forth. Now, A and B categories is what I call as an Africa 1, and it varies anywhere from 5% to 15%. These are the people living in these 53 countries that they could be living anywhere. They have access to resources. They could be senior executives in a company. They could be the foreign nationals who have been posted there, but they consume there, they live there. This could be the businessmen, small or the large businessmen. But the interesting story of Africa was really the C category. Now, C category happens to be anywhere from 35% to 45%. So, ladies and gentlemen, essentially you are talking about anywhere from 300 million to 500 million people in Africa who are C category. Who are these people? They could be your school teachers. They could be people who are working in the hospitality industry. There could be nurses. So this Africa C is the one that really struck me, that how these people have become so ambitious, that how these people are literally like anybody else that I have seen in many of the developing countries when I wrote my 86% solution book. They want to give the best to their children, better than what they have. They are very optimistic. They see Africa going someplace. Now, the third thing that really struck me in terms of market opportunity was the young population. And the fact of the matter there is, when you look at that data, for whatever the reason that may be, either maybe because the fertility rate is high, or maybe the life expectancy is not very high, or whatever the reason may be, the 41% or more than 40% of African population of 950 million people is less than 15 years old. As a matter of fact, Africa is the youngest continent. Now, you can imagine that the youth, when you travel to many of these countries, how young these people look. And the young people, interesting enough, what I found through many studies done by Coca-Cola and many other countries, many other companies, that they are very optimistic. And in fact, a nice scholar from Ghana has called them cheetah generation as compared to the older generation, what he calls as a hippo generation. Hippo generation is the one that still has a lot of memory from the colonial days. Cheetah generation is the one that would be just like my children growing up in Austin, Texas. The sky is the limit for these guys. They know that they may not have those opportunities, but they are ambitious. They are optimistic. And so you would see in the book my reflections on a lot of the market visits, a lot of the interviews with the Chinese, the Indians, and the Korean companies, a lot of the American companies, a lot of the European companies, most of the companies who are actually in the consumer markets. Many of the advertising agencies, for example, Saatchi & Saatchi, their offices throughout were very helpful to me. So a lot of the research that I did, it was very hands-on, and simply could not, I could not simply write this book unless I had really gone there on the continent, see with my own eyes, talk to a sample of these 900 million consumers, talk to a sample of the companies who were trying to approach this market, and learn lessons from them. So as a matter of fact, at the end of the day, the consumer safari that I was on literally is a reflection of many teachers, if you will. The many teachers that I met throughout the continent from the various the organizations. I'm not a politician. I don't like politics. I don't enjoy politics. So you're not going to find much about the politics in this book. What you're going to find there is a lot of the very positive spirit of the entrepreneurs who are trying to really approach this the consumer market